Greetings, welcome or welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Joe. Thank you for clicking on this video and let us disembark on the journey of discovering who the fuck Captain Blackbeard was together. Where did you first hear of Captain Blackbeard? My personal introduction was in the Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, but I think he also had a small appearance in the Curse of the Black Pearl, if I am not wrong. But for me, that's where I first saw him. As I did my research, I've seen that he's in multiple animes actually, like the anime that has Luffy. Do not arrest me, anime police. I do not watch anime, but I have seen a picture of Blackbeard in that anime. The best part is that I did not know he was a real person until I dug deep into doing my research for this video. I just thought that he was a fictional character, guys. The name Blackbeard is so fucking cool. Yeah, he was just a guy like with a cool name, but he was real. I just want to make that clear in case there are any more people who are as lost as me. Blackbeard is based off a real person. Obviously, he's not as cool as the Blackbeard on Stranger Tides. He was better. Yeah, arrest me. I said what I said. In this video, we're going to be discussing the real life of Captain Blackbeard. Presumably born around 1680, Edward Teach was born in the second largest city of England, Bristol. Bristol at the time was the center of commerce and slave trade. Not much is known about his early life, but he was certainly literate to a degree. The reason as to why we could say that he was literate is that he was able to communicate with merchants. And also at the time of his premature, untimely demise, a letter from Tobias Knight was found in his possession. Tobias Knight was the Chief Justice and Secretary of North Carolina. In fact, author Robert Lee speculated that Teach may have come from a rich, respectable, wealthy family. But we will never know. We will never know. That's just speculation. He is believed to have arrived in the Caribbean in the late 17th century in a merchant vessel, presumably a slave ship. According to the 18th century author Charles Johnson, he may have served as a privateer under the British flag during the War of the Spanish Succession. 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 The aftermath of the war led to a large number of privateers turning into piracy due to the lack of employment. They needed to earn a living. They were unemployed. Now let us briefly discuss the New Providence. New Providence became the base of operations for pirates in the early 18th century. Why? Number one, it was easy to access the Florida state from the New Providence. Number two, its waters were filled with European vessels, and you know what comes from European vessels? Goods. The pirates needed the goods. The other reason is that its harbor could accommodate hundreds of ships, and the final reason was that the harbor was too shallow for Royal Navy vessels, making it practically a safe haven for pirates because, like, if the police cannot come and catch you, you can continue committing atrocities without any fear. After signing the Treaty of Utrecht, Teach also came to enjoy the island's benefits and joined piracy. Teach joined the crew of the renowned Captain Benjamin Honeygold and was placed in charge of a sloop that Honeygold had taken as a prize. A sloop is a ship is a vessel. And then they both headed to the mainland, each captaining a sloop. During this period, they captured a vessel from Havana containing 120 barrels of flour. Not long after, they captured a vessel from Bermuda containing 100 barrels of wine. And on the 29th of September, they captured Betty, who was sailing from Madeira. Having developed a taste for the Madeira wine, I hope that I'm pronouncing that well, they took her cargo from Madeira and then sank her with her remaining cargo. It was during this cruise where the earliest report of Teach as a pirate was made. Thatch was reported to have had, quote, a sloop, 6 guns, and about 70 men. After Captain Matthew Muniz. After Captain Matthew Month. After Captain Matthew Month on an anti-piracy patrol on North Carolina. Thatch was said to be a pirate in his own right and in charge of a large crew. Also during this cruise, Stede Bonnet, landowner and military officer from a rich family turned pirate earlier that year, encountered the notorious duo. With his permission, Teach took charge of his ship, Revenge, and his crew of about 70 men since they were dissatisfied with his command. The two pirates' flotilla now consisted of Revenge, belonging to Teach's old sloop which he had received from Honeygold, and Ranger, which belonged to Honeygold. In October 22nd, 1717, a Philadelphia dispatch reported that Captain Benjamin Honeygold, accompanied by Teach, had seized two ships in Delaware Bay. The ships were Good Intent and Robert of Philadelphia. These reports went on to be published in the Boston Newsletter between November 4th and 11th of 1717. The Boston Newsletter was America's only newspaper at the time, hence making the name Teach popular, and that's how we know him as of today. The Boston Newsletter, popular, you're gonna be popular. Thatch was used by people who had actually met him, with variations ranging from Thatch. Yes, those are three different names: Titch, Tack, and Tack. One source claimed that his surname was Drummond but lacked supporting evidence. So what was Edward's actual surname? We may never know, mainly due to the fact that pirates use fictitious surnames to prevent tarnishing the family names, modern-day equivalent of using burner accounts to test your partner's loyalty. Near the end of 1717, Honeygold was demoted, as his main objective was to attack his enemies, but his crew was like, the sight of British vessels passing by untouched, having all their goods, they were like, nah, you better go. It's everyone or no one. He then split with Teach, taking Ranger and one of the sloops, as he retired from piracy and accepted the king's pardon. There's fruit flies in my house, and I am pissed off. The king's pardon was like a slap on the wrist. Like, hey, I know you were a pirate, but if you did not commit this act of piracy up to this certain date, you will not be hung. You will be pardoned, It's either like, hey, you are being a bad, naughty boy, or you are hung. There's a fruit fly in my house. On the 20th of November 1717, Teach's two ships, say that 3 times, attacked and captured the French merchant slave vessel La Concorde of St. Vincent. It was later renamed to Queen Anne's Revenge, quickly becoming Teach's favorite. According to me, it's not recorded, but like, why would you name something Queen Anne's Revenge and not let it be your favorite? Like, I think it was that. I think it was the real life equivalent of Le Black Pearl, the Black Pearl. Yeah, it was Queen Anne's Revenge. Yeah. He then placed his Lieutenant Richard in charge of Revenge. Late November the same year, he captured the Great Allen near St. Vincent. Her crew was disembarked near the shore, her cargo holds emptied, and she was burnt and sunk. Brutal. This incident went on to be reported in the Boston Newsletter, calling Teach the commander of a, quote, French ship of 32 guns, a brigantine of 10 guns, and a sloop of 12 guns. By the time, he may have been in command of 150 men across 3 vessels. This man. In December 5th, 1717, he captured Margaret, a merchant vessel, off the coast of Crab Island near Anguilla. Captain Henry Bostock and his crew were imprisoned by Teach, and for around 8 hours they helplessly watched Margaret being looted. It's a cruel world. Bostock, who was held captive on Queen Anne's Revenge, was returned to his ship unharmed and was allowed to live with his crew. Bostock then returned to St. Christopher Island, which was his base of operations, and reported the incident to Governor Walter Hamilton. Bostock's report detailed Teach as being in command of two vessels, a sloop, a large French Guineaman, Dutch-built, with 36 cannons and 300 crewmen. He believed that the larger ship contained valuables like gold dust, silver plates, and a very fine gold cup, presumably obtained from the commander of the Great Allen. He was also supposedly informed by Chich's crew that they had destroyed several other vessels and they had intended to sail to Hispaniola and await the Spanish Armada, believed to have been laden with money to pay their garrisons. Bostock also claimed that Chich had inquired from him about movement of local ships and also seemed unfazed when he people 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 need to shut the fuck up. And also seemed unfazed when he was informed about the king's pardon for all pirates from London. It's like he already knew, he just like didn't give a fuck. Bostock described Stitch as a tall, spare man with a very black beard, which he wore very long, making it the first recorded account of Stitch's appearance, hence the alias Blackbeard. Later descriptions mention that he used to braid his beard into pigtails and tie them with colored ribbons. He was a baddie. Johnson, 1724, said that he was such a figure that imagination cannot form an idea of a fury from hell to look more frightful. Guys, he was just alternative. Damn. Talking about furies from hell. He was just expressive with his fashion. Relax. Damn. Teach was tall, broad-shouldered, wore knee-length boots, dark clothing topped with a wide hat, and a long coat of brightly colored silk or velvet. Johnson, 1724, said that in times of battle, Teach wore, quote, a sling over his shoulder with rebraced pistols hanging in holsters like bandoliers and stuck lighted slow matches under his hat. The interesting thing is that despite him having such a ferocious reputation, which was just, his appearance, there is no actual recorded incidents of him ever actually having killed a person. He was just alternative. In March 1718, while sailing the waters at Tanif Island, east of Belize, Edward's ship spotted the Jamaican sloop Adventure headed for the harbor. She was stopped and her captain Harriot and his crew accepted Teach's invitation to join the pirates. Teach sent over a crew to sail Adventure and made Israel Hans her captain. At the Bay of Honduras, they added another ship and 4 sloops to their flotilla. With his enlarged fleet, Stitch continued to rain havoc before disembarking to the port of Charlestown, South Carolina, where his most famous acts of piracy took place. In late May 1718, after Teach had awarded himself the rank of Commodore, his flotilla blockaded the port of Charlestown. Every single vessel entering and exiting the port was stopped, and since the town had no guard ship, her pilot ship was the first one to be stopped and captured. Over the next 5 to 6 days, about 9 vessels were captured and looted as they attempted to sail past Charlestown. It was really bad. It was bad. Like, this man had audacity. Audacious man! One ship in particular, Crowley, was headed for London with a group of prominent Charlestown figures, including Samuel Wren, a council member of the province of Carolina. Her passengers were questioned regarding the vessel still at the port, and then they were held captive below deck for about 12 hours. 12! Teach then informed his captives that his crew required medical supplies and that if the government of South Carolina refused to provide the supplies, they would all be beheaded and their heads sent back to the governor of South Carolina, and all the captured ships would be burned. I don't know if it was a bluff, but yeah. If you tell me something like that, I will bring you the entire hospital. I will float the hospital to where you are. Ryan complied with Teach and Mr. Max, and two pirates were given 2 days to return with the medical supplies. Teach then moved the entire fleet about 5 leagues or 27.5 kilometers away from land. 3 days later, a messenger of Max returned to inform Teach that Max's boat had capsized prior to reaching Charlestown, hence the delay. Teach then added them 2 more days, but then again, they were nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be found. I'm pretty sure, like, this time the captives were like, "Hey, man." Teach conversed with his fellow sailors and they decided to move 8 of the vessels into the harbor, causing unease within the town because, yo, we're just pirates and we are here. I'm talking about me. When Max finally returned, he informed Tish that on his arrival, he presented the pirates' demands to the governor and the drugs were obtained immediately. But the two pirates that he was sent with disappeared and went on to get drunk. They were nowhere to be found, and when they were eventually found, there was already a delay. Tich kept his word. He released the captives but still took their stuff. While in Charlestown, Teach learned that Wood Rogers had left England to purge the West Indies of pirates. Teach sailed northward to Topsail Inlet off the coast of North Carolina. They had intended to anchor their ship so that they could scrape their holes. Okay. But unfortunately, on the 10th of June 1718, Queen Anne's Revenge ran aground a sandbar. Cracking her mainmast and damaging most of her timbers. Teach's attempts to free her failed, and to add insult to injury, Adventure, which was being captained by Israel Hands, also ran aground and both ships were damaged beyond repair and they had to be left behind, leaving only Revenge and the captured French vessel. Teach, already having learnt about the king's pardon, confided in Stede Bonnet in his willingness to accept it. It was open for all pirates who surrendered on or before 5th of September 1718, but only offered immunity for crimes committed before 5th of January 1718. Considering the Charlestown Bar incident, it was most likely that Teach and Bonnet would both be hanged. Hangman! Oh, no, 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 no. Teach, however, thought that Governor Eden was someone he could trust, but just to test the waters, just to be sure, he sent Bonnet, "Go, my child. What they will tell you there, come back and tell me if you will come back." And Bonnet did. Luckily, when Bonnet surrendered to Governor Eden at Bathtown, he was granted his pardon. Breathing a sigh of relief, he intended to sail back to Topsail Inlet and take Revenge and his crew and sail to St. Thomas Island, where he would receive his commission. On arrival, far from his expectations, he found that Teach had looted Revenge of all her valuables and even marooned his crew. There is no honor among thieves. He tried to sort out Revenge, but Teach was nowhere to be found. Returning to piracy, Bonnet and his crew were captured on the 27th of September 1718 at the Cape Fear River. All but 4 were tried and hanged, showing the end of Bonnet's lucky streak. Goodbye, my brother. Goodbye, my friend. Before sailing to Ocracoke Inlet, Teach stranded about 25 men on a small island about 5 kilometers away from the mainland, presumably to hush down any protests made regarding his plans. Bonnet did end up rescuing them 2 days later, and do not get it confused, like, has not died yet. Bonnet was hanged on the 27th of September 1718. The pardon he had received was in June. So, like, he was active. He went back to piracy June, July, August, and then he was caught in September and then he died. This was the time where the wound was still fresh from the betrayal from Teach. Teach proceeded to Bath, and in June 1718, him and his remaining crew received their pardon from Governor Eden. Teach ended up settling on the eastern side of Bath Creek at Plum Point near Governor Eden's home. Between July and August, he traveled to his sloop off Ocracoke and his home. That was where he was, and I think during this time, Bonnet was still doing his pirate stuff, I think so. Eden then permitted him to seek commission as a privateer at St. Thomas, and Teach would then rename his remaining sloop Adventure. As expected later in the month of August, Teach had already returned to piracy, operating in Delaware Bay, while the governor of Pennsylvania had issued a warrant for his arrest. Teach captured two French ships, leaving the Caribbean, took one of their crew, put them on one of the boats, and then took one of the remaining ships and went back with it to Ocracoke. In September, he presented the ship to Governor Eden, claiming that it was deserted. And under the Vice Admiralty Court presided by Tobias Knight and the Collector of Customs, the ship was ruled out as abandoned at sea. As a result, its cargo was divided among the three men. Knight received 20 hogshead of sugar, Eden received 60, and Teach and his crew received the rest. It's a win-win situation. The Ocracoke Inlet acted as Teach's crow's nest, offering a perfect view of ships traveling in Northeast Carolina, and one of the ships that he would end up spotting is that of Charles Vane. Vane was another English pirate, but contrary to Teach's experience, he had not only declined the pardon offered to him by Wood Rogers, but had also been pursued by Honeygold, who was Teach's old commander, who at the time worked as a pirate hunter. Is a small, small world. At the southern end of Ocracoke Island, Teach, Vane, and the insufferable Israel Hans and Robert Deal ended up spending multiple nights together. Word of Teach's and Vane's union spread to the neighboring colonies, leading to the governor of Pennsylvania sending two sloops to capture the pirates. The unsuccessful attempt of their capture led to an increasing concern by the governor of Virginia, Alexander Spotswood, knowing that Teach and his crew lived nearby North Carolina. Spotswood's concern grew further when some of Teach's former crew settled into some of Virginia's seaport towns. And on the 10th of July, he issued a proclamation requiring all former pirates to make themselves known to authority, give up their weaponry, and travel in groups no larger than 3 men or women. Inclusivity. Alexander Spotswood was the head of a crown colony, and as such he saw North Carolina as some sort of a worthless colony. He saw Carolinians as not competent enough, aka incompetent, to control pirates who would turn back to piracy as soon as their money ran out, leading to a disruption of the Virginian commerce. In the pursuit of the whereabouts of Teach, Spotswood inquired that William Howard, quartermaster of the Queen Anne's Revenge, was in the area and had him and 2 other pirates wrongfully arrested. Now, why was this arrest wrongful? Because Spotswood had no authority to try pirates unless it was a crisis. He was just being extra. He was doing too much. With this information, Howard's attorney, John Holloway, ended up pressing charges against Captain Brad of Hemmetiers Line, where Howard was imprisoned. He also sued £500 on damages on behalf of Howard for wrongful arrest. But did Alexander Spotswood stop there? No, he did not. I mean, look at him. Look at this man. He claimed that Teach's presence was a crisis in itself, and under the statute of William III, the governor was entitled to try pirates without jury at the time of crisis. He was a petty man. Petty. The charges against Howard's act of piracy, presumably undertaken after the pardon's cut-off date, completely ignoring the fact that they were done on a legally owned vessel at the time outside Spotswood's jurisdiction. This man was just in everybody's business. I hate this man. The other charge was of capturing a slave ship off Charlestown Bar, presumably where his slaves came from. The Charlestown Bar thing, like that was the death sentence for all the pirates. I'm just saying. Like, they had audacity, yeah, but like that was like a death sentence to all of them. Like, I cannot defend you past that. Howard awaited his trial before the court of Vice Admiralty, but Captain Brad and his fellow Captain Gordon of Hemmetiers Pearl refused to serve in the presence of Holloway, I wonder why. Oh my god. There must be a reason. There must be a reason. What was the reason? John Clayton, Attorney General of Virginia, ended up replacing Holloway, as Spotswood considered him an honester man. Get off your knees. Clayton, get off your knees. Howard was found guilty and was sentenced to be hanged, but was saved by a commission from London, forcing Spotswood to pardon all acts of piracy committed before the 18th of August 1718. By all surrendered pirates. However, by this time, Spotswood had already obtained the much needed information regarding Teach. With the support of Edward Mosley and Colonel Maurice Moore, who also spited Governor Eden and also convincing the Lords of Trade, Spotswood personally financed the operation to capture Teach, suggesting that the Crown would benefit from it. An undeniable offer to receive a reward from the Assembly of Virginia on Teach's capture was also set. So he was going all out, like, you bring me this man for my ego. Captain Gordon of HMHS Pearl and Brand of HMHS Lyme were given orders to travel to Bath. Lieutenant Robert Maynard of HMHS Pearl was put in charge of 2 sloops to approach Bath. On the 17th of November, Maynard took charge of the 2 armed sloops and went on to receive 57 men, 33 from HMHS Pearl and 24 from HMHS Lyme. He and the crew from HMHS Pearl took charge of the larger vessel and named her Jane, while the other crew took Ranger, commanded by Mr. Hyde, one of Maynard's officers. Of course, some of the 2 ships' civilians stayed on board, so it was not just the 57 men, there were still other people. On the same day, they sailed from Kickerton, moving slowly along the James River, and this was to give Brand, who had a different force, time to reach Bath. Brand set out 6 days later, arriving within 3 months of Bath on the 23rd of November. So no! Brand's force included several North Carolinas, including Colonel Moore and Captain Jeremiah, who will be used to simmer down any objection of foreign soldiers by the locals. Moore went to town to see if Teach was there. He was not. Brand then went to Eden's home to inform him about the operation. The following day, Brand sent 2 canoes down Pamlico River to Ocracoke Inlet to check on Teach. Returning 2 days later, Brand received some rather unexpected news. I wonder what it is. See, on the 21st of November, Maynard did end up finding the pirates anchored at the inner side of Ocracoke Island. He narrowed down their position from information he had received from ships he had stopped along the way. But due to unfamiliarity with the local channel, he decided to wait and make his attack the following morning. He stopped all traffic entering the inlet to prevent someone from telling Snitch of his presence. He then set out lookout on both slopes to ensure that Teach would not run to sea. Sail to sea. Swim away. Teach, completely unawares of the impending catastrophe, was entertaining guests at the other end of the island with a much reduced crew, as Israel hands had about 24 of Adventure's sailors on shore. At first light, following a small boat taking soundings, Maynard's 2 sloops entered the inlet. The small boat was spotted instantly and was shot by Adventure as soon as it was within firing range. As the boat retreated to Jane, Teach cut the anchor cable of Adventure, his crew hoisting the sails, and pointed her starboard guns towards Maynard's 2 sloops, which were clearly closing in. Hyde moved Ranger on the port side of Jane, unfolding the Union flag on both ships. Adventure then turned and headed for a narrow channel at the beach of Ocracoke Island. According to Johnson, 1724, there was an exchange of small arms fire, pew pew pew, following Adventure running aground a sandbar while Maynard was able to captain his ship over the obstacle. In another version, both Jane and Ranger ran aground, which was not reported by Maynard in his log. I wouldn't also say. Embarrassing. I wouldn't also admit to that. I get you. Adventure then turned her guns to the 2 ships. This is a very inaccurate description, but I'm talking about a Kenyan brother. Adventure then pointed her guns to the 2 ships and fired, instantly ending a third of Maynard's force. About 20 casualties on Jane and about 9 on Ranger, including Hyde, who was now deceased. Moment of silence for Hyde. Moment of silence. Put the snacks down. Moment of silence for Hyde. Ranger was no longer part of the attack due to the damage that it had already taken. Small arms fire may have continued, cutting Adventure's jib sheet and forcing her to run onto the sandbar. And after Teach's brutal attack, both Jane and Ranger may have also been grounded. Maynard had one last trick up his sleeve in case the attack went horribly wrong, which clearly it is, like, it's going to as soon as Adventure and Jane contacted. Adventure's grappling hook hit their target and several powder grenades were thrown at Jane's deck. As the smoke cleared, Teach and his crew boarded Jane's apparent empty deck, finishing off the rest of Maynard's crew. But to Teach's surprise, many of Maynard's men burst from below deck and joined the battle. That right there was Maynard's trick. That right there. That was a trick. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Chaos ensued as the two groups fought across the deck. Maynard and Teach fired at each other with Teach getting hit. They both then drew their cutlasses, with Teach managing to break Maynard's cutlass at the hilt. Dun dun dun! Now this could have been a really bad situation for Maynard, but due to their not so slight advantage in numbers, Teach was now completely surrounded by Jane's crew. And as Teach went to deliver the killing blow, he was slashed across the neck by one of Maynard's men, leading to him only slashing the knuckles. Maynard's knuckles. You all know. No, these are knuckles. Where the fuck am I? Oh, these are ankles. Leading to only slashing Maynard's knuckles instead. Pew. Teach was then attacked and killed by the remaining of Maynard's men. Moment of silence for Captain Blackbeard. Put the snacks down. The remaining pirates surrendered and those left on Adventure were captured, including the one who had planned to set fire to the powder room and blowing up the ship. According to Maynard, 8 of his men and 12 pirates were killed. Brand reported that 10 pirates and 11 of Maynard's men were killed. The same Brand who arrived at Bata day after the battle, and then sent his men 2 days after the battle to check on Teach's whereabouts. And then 4 whole days after the battle is when he realized that the battle had already taken place. That Brand. Like, yeah, let's consider that guy's account. And according to Spotswood, 10 pirates and 10 of the king's men were killed. On examining Tate's body, Maynard found that he had been shot 5 times and cut about 20. He also found a letter from Tobias Knight, the one that I mentioned in the beginning. Yes, if you were listening, you would know about the letter. But no, you are not listening. His head was decapitated and hung at the bowsprit of Maynard's sloop for the collection of the reward, while his body was thrown into the inlet, left to rot away. His head was placed on a pole at the entrance of Chesapeake Bay in Virginia to serve as a warning to pirates and greetings to ships passing by. And it stayed there for several years. Like, I get it, like, we're sending a message, but decomposition, smells, maggots. Maynard stayed in Ocracoke for several days, making repairs and burying the dead. Teach's loot of sugar, cocoa, indigo, and cotton, along with sugar and cotton found in Tobias Knight's barn, was auctioned off for 2,238 euros. Spotswood used part of the money to pay for the operation. You know, what happened to fully funding the operation, my guy? What happened? Well, maybe it was included, but like, you are the head of the crown colony. I'm assuming you have 2,238 euros somewhere that you can just, yeah. The reward money to capture Teach was 400 euros. And ended up being split between the crews of HMHS Line and HMHS Pearl. Basically, Brand and his crew ended up getting paid for doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is why they say, you know, work within your paycheck. Don't bend backwards to please your employer when you're still getting paid by someone who is there by 9 and home by 5? You're doing too much, and it's not gonna end well for you. Work within your paycheck. Work within your paycheck. They did end up getting paid 4 years later. And despite Maynard risking his life to complete the mission, he was never promoted and completely faded into the shadows of either Spotswood or Brand or some or even Blackbeard himself. Even in his death, he is still more regarded than Maynard. Work within your paycheck. Work within your paycheck. It's sad. Sad, sad way to go. Sad. But they're all dead now, so like. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you have made it to this part of the video, I want you to comment with a pineapple. Put a pineapple in the comment and I'll know that you're a real one. I know that your attention span is still okay. Oh. And leave a like, comment and subscribe. Thank you so much for taking time in your day to watch my video. I hope that you like it. And I will be posting after 2 weeks. Like I said that the previous time and then I disappeared for 4 months. Please, I was locked in. I was locked in. But now I have time for YouTube and I can go back to posting frequently. Goodbye.